friends. We just met our friend Martin, and we've just heard a story about Elijah. Now, Elijah is a person in the Christian story who had a lot to say about who God was and what it meant to follow God together. Another person who was a lot like that was Martin Luther, and we're going to learn a little bit about him today. So today is October 31st, and for some people, for a lot of us, that means Halloween and all of the fun and the creativity and the generosity that comes with that holiday. If you're interested in the Christian story, then October 31st is also important because of the story of Martin Luther. It's a day called Reformation Day. More than 500 years ago, on October 31st, Martin Luther did a thing that felt like a small thing, but turned out to be a very big thing. It's a thing that is so big that it's part of why we gather the way we do today. 500 years ago, which I agree is so far ago that it's hard to imagine, a monk named Martin Luther stuck a list of 95 things that he was very worried about to what in his time was the community bulletin board, the front door of his local church. Imagine coming in on a Sunday morning and thumbtacked to the front door of Hancock is a list of 95 things that someone thinks are troubling and wants us to talk about. Gosh. Everyone could see it, everyone could read it, and hopefully people would gather together to see what could be done. That's what Martin Luther was hoping for, because Martin Luther was worried. Martin Luther was worried about the church, about his church family, and about the things that were happening around him. He was worried that his church family was tying having a good relationship with God to the things that we were doing and things that we could buy, instead of to God's love and our faith in God's love. One big thing he was worried about was called indulgences. That was a thing that was happening around him, where people were buying permission from the church to do bad things. It would be like if I gave Barbara $5 so that I could say something mean about Jenna. That really upset Martin Luther, because he couldn't find that practice, indulgences, anywhere in the Bible. So he did the best thing that he could think to do: tell the other people in his church family what was going on so that they could all talk about it together. And goodness, did they talk about it. It turns out that what Martin Luther thought was kind of a little local problem was actually a big church-wide problem. And once people started talking about it, it was really difficult for them to stop. Like Martin Luther, people disagreed about whether the rules of the church or the stories in the Bible were more important in deciding how to live together. Both groups of people thought both were important, but they disagreed on which should come first. And this disagreement really mattered because it affected how people treated each other every day, what they could do, and how they knew they were okay with God. People disagreed about it so much that eventually they decided they had to separate. One part of the church family decided that the rules of the church were more important, and one part decided that the stories in the Bible were more important. This story matters because we're part of the church family that decided that the stories in the Bible were more important. Here at Hancock, we're part of a tradition called Protestant because of that decision that happened so long ago. That means that we are part of a church family that thinks it is good for you to read the Bible and decide what you think it means for yourself. And that thinks that this little guy, Martin Luther, made a good decision all those years ago when he stuck that list of 95 things he wanted to talk about to the front of the church door. So what does that mean for all of us today? That means we get to be part of a story of people who think that the stories in the Bible are important and think that when we live in ways that don't line up with the things we say, it's good for us to talk about that together. So later in this service, we are going to hear a sermon from Jenna about Elijah. I'd like to invite you, kids watching at home, to do your very, very best to listen to the sermon this week. And if there are things that you have questions about, I invite you to ask them. Asking questions about the church is one way that we can celebrate Reformation Day together. I know I'm going to be doing it, and I invite you to do it too. Let's pray. God, you made us so complicated and so really, really into finding out the best ways to follow you. God, I pray that you would grow faithful hearts in us and questioning minds and great capacity for good conversation. Amen.